Story 1. I work as a school janitor. Half my day is spent in the lunchroom emptying the trash cans and sweeping up. At most schools, you get 15+ minutes in between each lunch period to do all the cleaning. At my school, I get less than 2 minutes, if I'm lucky. Normally, if a trash can isn't full, I just dump one can to another, and then tie off that bag when it gets full. It's a lot faster than having to replace every bag every time, and it saves a ton of bags. I also sweep up around the tables, and if I see a big mess under a table, I ask the kids to move their feet and sweep that up too. I do it this way because it's the only way to keep up and keep things clean. If I pulled every bag every time instead of dumping one can into another, not only would I run out of bags halfway through the week, but it would also take way longer. If I only swept under tables when there was no kids sitting there, I would literally never have an opportunity to sweep under tables. Enter the lunch ladies. Most of them are nice, but there's this one older one who is just a miserable human being. She yells at everyone, including the kids, and is just always angry about something. Earlier this week, she yelled at me for dumping one trash can into another instead of pulling the bag. Why she chose today to do this, I don't know, since I'd been doing this every day for the past 3+ years. I know how to do my job and didn't ask her opinion, so I just ignored her, didn't say anything, and kept doing what I was doing. Fast forward an hour or two, and I'm getting a call from my district boss that there was a complaint filed against me. The lunch ladies are saying they don't like that I dump cans instead of pulling bags, and they don't like that I sweep under the kids' feet. My boss tells me just stick to cleaning in between lunch periods. I try to explain that that's literally a period of less than 2 minutes and isn't even a fifth of the amount of time I'd need to do it that way. He says just do it anyway to keep the lunch ladies happy. He's a good dude, but he's just trying to squash complaints and keep them from going further. He says from now on, I'm only to empty trash or sweep the floors in between lunches, where there's not students in the cafeteria, and also I'm to pull the bags every time. No more dumping cans. Cue malicious compliance. Starting then, I only cleaned in between lunches when there was no kids. Of course, this is literally like a knife and a half, so I only had time to get to half the trash cans, and since I was replacing every bag instead of dumping cans, each can took longer. I didn't even have time to sweep at all. The trash cans I couldn't get to would fill up and overflow, and the kids don't care and just keep piling trash on top. The floor got more and more covered in trash, since I didn't have time to sweep at all. I did this for the rest of the week. The same bitchy lunch lady tried to scream at me to go empty the trash when I was standing there on Tuesday, but I explained, I was told by my boss that you guys didn't like me sweeping or emptying trash around the kids, so now I'm only allowed to do that when the cafeteria is empty. I'd love to go get that trash can, but there's kids eating lunch right now, so I'm not allowed. She tried to argue, but I just told her I'm following direct and explicit orders from my boss. There was nothing she could do. When the final lunch ended, I cleaned as much as I could before 2 p.m. and then stopped, as that was my lunch time and the union requires that we take our lunches at our allotted times. It's optional and zero tolerance for deviation. And after my lunch, I have to go clean classrooms since school is out, and classrooms take priority over the cafeteria. End result, the cafeteria never got fully cleaned. When the lunch ladies came in Monday and found it still half filthy, they went through the roof and complained to my boss. He called me in and I explained that I was just follow orders, and the lunch ladies were the ones who asked I do things this way. Suffice it to say, I was told to go back to doing it however I thought was best. You want to stick your nose in my business and tell me how to do my job. See how that turns out. Oh, and also since then, I spent the rest of the week calling them out on all the things they were doing wrong. Previously, I just kept my mouth shut and minded my business. But now we're doing this the way you wanted. Door propped open because it's incredibly hot in the kitchen and you need the airflow? Sorry. That's a security issue. Doors cannot be propped open. Greasy wax paper in the cardboard recycling. Sorry, that can't go in there. Normally I'd just grab it as I see it, but now, I waited till the end of the day and then tell them, They had to pick it all out by hand. You guys like having the radio playing in the kitchen? Sorry, not allowed. Shut it down. Story 2. I'm in my mid-30s, and I have 2 friends around the same age who are struggling financially, but still aren't working. I understand that if you have a degree or previously ran your own business, it can be difficult to consider working as a server, cook, or in the back of the house. However, when you genuinely need money, why wouldn't you at least consider it? It's not anyone's first choice, but if you truly needed a job, you could find something that works for you. One friend lives with his parents, while the other lives with his son and girlfriend. Both have told me they are willing to leave home and work, but they are waiting for a job that feels good enough. They are intelligent guys who have worked in the service industry before, but they refuse to go back because they say it's depressing. I understand that to some extent, but it's also frustrating trying to relate because, for me and many others, working these jobs isn't a choice, it's a necessity. The situation that really got to me happened when one of them asked to hang out around dinner time. I had just gotten off work and was picking up food when my friend, the one who lives with his parents, met up with me at a sandwich shop right after I had placed my order. He told me he was hungry but didn't have enough money for food and gas to get home. Later that night, he brought up a concert he wanted to attend with me in a month, but the tickets were around $30. I told him I'd have to think about it because I was kind of broke myself. This is why in making this post, this friend has been living with his parents for over a year without working, and situations like this happen all the time. I've even offered him multiple opportunities at places where our friends work, but he keeps holding out for something better. I get wanting a good job, but couldn't he at least work part-time while waiting for the perfect opportunity? We usually just hang out at my place, but we can't do much because he's always broke. Meanwhile, I'm trying to stick to my own financial goals and budget while still being there for him. Whenever we spend time together, he complains about how bored he is and how much he needs money. I tell him to come work with me or with one of our friends, but he always refuses, saying it's too depressing. The thing is, he's never even tried working at the places I've recommended. Not even a part-time shift interests him. It rubs me the wrong way, like he thinks he's above this kind of work, but is still desperate for cash. I just don't get it. I actually enjoy my job because I found a good place to work, and I wish he would at least be open to trying. The other friend is in a similar situation, but I have more sympathy for him because he has a child. He is overqualified to work in restaurants or bars, but has done so in the past. I've offered him job opportunities with me and through our mutual friends at different places, but he refuses. His reason? He's worried about getting sick and bringing it home to his girlfriend and child, which is valid and understandable. However, when I asked if he was looking for remote work, he said that kind of job was too boring. When I asked what his plan was, he simply said he was going to keep looking. Meanwhile, he admitted that his bills were piling up and some had even been turned off. As much as I understand his concerns, there comes a point when you have to take whatever work you can get to survive. If you're asking for help on social media to buy groceries but refusing to take a restaurant job, I just don't understand the logic. I don't have family to fall back on or anywhere to go. If I can't pay my bills, it would be game over for me. I've slept in my car before, and I never want to go through that again. Staying financially stable is something I protect fiercely. Over the years, I've worked so many temporary jobs that I hated just to get by. Yes, it's frustrating, but sometimes you have to take a job that isn't your first choice because it helps you get to where you need to be. You never know what connections you might make or what doors might open if you're willing to step into a new environment. I know this kind of work isn't for everyone, but when friends go out of their way to offer you a job or pull some strings to get you a shift, it's worth considering. If your power is about to be shut off, wouldn't you at least take a part-time job washing dishes? I struggle with deep depression myself, so I understand how the service industry can be tough on people. But for a lot of us, having a steady paycheck, a good boss, and coworkers who become friends can actually help pull you out of that dark place. My job and the people I work with have been my lifesavers. Yes, working jobs like these in your 30s can be humbling, but my job is helping me get out of debt. I have friends, we work hard, we get raises, and there's a path to move up. The goal is to get in, earn what you need, and either move on to something better or work your way up to management. It's not forever, but for many people, it's a stable source of income right now. Just showing up and putting in the effort can help you get out of a tough situation. I made this post after offering both of them jobs where they'd work with me and start at the same pay rate, $20 an hour, which I think is pretty decent. But because it's a restaurant job, neither of them is interested. Yet, they both have asked to borrow money this month. I'm not even mad about it at this point, I just find it ironic. Story 3. So, I am a cancer researcher and a guest professor at an university school of medicine, teaching my specialty, imaging. Besides the usual acquisitions of medical images using MRI, Connecticut, etc. Imaging has a lot to do with image processing. Some days I am just a glorified programmer guy. And as anyone who has ever programmed anything will tell you, coding is a very personal activity. With enough experience, you can tell who wrote what just by looking at the lines. I am also in my late 20s, and I am not native to this country, and it's my first year as a guest professor. So, some students look at me as this inexperienced, gullible, foreign guy. As part of my module's grading, the students have to submit 2 reports that weigh 10% each of their final grade. These reports are about image processing, and they have to code a fair bit. As usual, there are students that make an effort, some do minimal work, and then some cheat copy. As I was grading the reports, I noticed a small group of students who found reports from previous years online and literally copy plus paste those reports, changing only their name. It was a facepalm moment because those reports were not even good and had a lot of errors. You see, in order to establish a baseline for my grading, I browsed previous year's reports so I knew what to expect from the students of this module. Naturally, I graded them all with 0 and kept working my way through grading the reports I had left. Meanwhile, the students casually asked me in the halls how the reports were. Of course, I can't comment on that until I release the grades. One time, this dude, who has copied from another report, 98% match on plagiarism checker, asks me when I will release the grades and comes up with this story that he worked really hard on his reports. That his exam hasn't gone so well, and he is hoping that the grade on his reports are enough to get a pass. I mean, submitting another person's work as your own is very wrong, but it was an online submission and impersonal. Right now he was just lying through his teeth into my face. I could feel my blood boiling, but I didn't lose my composure and decided to come up with a plan. I knew that my exam was the last exam of the semester, and that after that the students usually go home or family vacations while they wait for their grades to be posted online. So I graded the exams and input their grades into my Excel with their report grades. 4 students had 0 due to cheating on their reports, and if I graded their reports with 50% of the max grade, they would barely fail the module. But they would fail nonetheless. So, it was on. In order to be fair, I bumped everyone else's grades. A bunch of people with miserable reports ended up barely passing because of my grade bump. But even though their reports were bad, it was their own work and not copied from anywhere. You see, students are entitled to make an appointment to review their grades after publishing and before the grades are locked for the year. Basically, they sit with me, we go through their exam and reports, and their goal is to convince me to give them extra points in hope that they pass the module. I knew the cheaters would come. After all, they think they fooled me once already, and they still have half the report's points to bargain for. So I just waited for their emails. Lo and behold, they write to me the same day the grades go online, saying how hard they have worked on their reports and that they don't understand how they only got 50%, and that they wanted an appointment. I was ecstatic. Sure, let's review your grades. Do you remember that my exam was the last one? Well, they were already on vacation, some very far away, and begged me for an online appointment. No can do. University policy. Moreover, you have 3 days to show for your appointment. Otherwise, the grades are locked. Also university policy. So here they come, cutting their vacation short and catching planes. Some spent hours in buses and trains to make it on time. I know what many of you are thinking. They come, I show them the plagiarism checker results, and reveal that I know that is not their work and send them on their way. Well, I considered it, but I had something better in mind. Those appointments usually take 10 minutes. I show them their work with my notes on what's wrong right, and they try to find some inconsistencies in my grading and bargain for more points. I ain't giving you the opportunity. Insert evil laugh. So, one by one they sit with me individually, and I go through their exam and reports. Remember that they copied the reports, and copied bad ones, with a lot of errors. I ask questions, lots of them. Why did you do this? What is your reasoning for this? They don't know. It's not their work. They mumble random stuff because they don't know what to answer. Point by point, mistake by mistake, I explain why it was wrong, how it should be done, lecturing the same material that they had already been lectured on during class. I make it long, I make it boring, I make it painful. I spent hours with each one of them throughout those 3 days. They always came with the same. I worked so hard on this. And a little smirk on their face because they thought that it should be really easy to fool me, the gullible foreign again. As the hours go by and I am walking through the errors one by one, I could see their expression change. Little by little, their hopes of passing being slowly crushed, and when they realized that I knew they cheated, and I wasn't going to give up any extra points. At this point they tried to cut short their appointment and leave. I wouldn't let them. We need to finish the review of your grades, it's university policy. And I just kept going, extending their misery for one more hour or two. It was legal torture, plain and simple. It was glorious. At the end, every single one of them left with a crushed soul look in their eyes and a fail in my class. They knew that I caught them, that I baited them, and they fell for it. They ruined their vacation and their family vacations, spent money to travel back and forth, wasted precious summer time, got bored to death and have nothing to show for it. And next year they will have to repeat the module with me. I hope you enjoy your summer. See you next year. Story 4. Hi. This was my first interaction with entitled people, and I decided to let everyone know what it was. Let's get on with it. Backstory: there is a kid who lives in my neighborhood and really wants an Xbox. Even though his parents are loaded, they won't buy him one. So whenever he gets the opportunity, he tries to play on someone else's console. This happened maybe a year and a half back, before COVID-19. I had just moved into the neighborhood. Everyone seemed nice and friendly. Even the entitled kid was nice at first. I had been playing badminton with him for a while, and one day, I asked him if he wanted to come play on my Xbox One. He squealed with joy. Yes, of course. We went over to my house, played some games, and he went back an hour or two later. 3 days later, we were playing badminton, and I accidentally broke his racket. I apologized and even offered to pay back. Instead of taking money, he said, "Maybe you can give something to me." I said okay and let him into the house. He looked around for a while and then headed to my bedroom. I saw him walk up to the table where my Xbox was kept. I thought he was going to take my Iron Man bobblehead, which was kept on my Xbox. Instead, he unplugged the wires and picked up my Xbox and said, "I'll take this." This is how our following conversation went. Me: "Oh my God, are you insane? You can't have my Xbox in exchange for a racket." Entitled kid: "I can and I will." He proceeded to walk away with my Xbox. I snatched it and then pushed him back. It was a very light push. I proceeded to drag him out of the house and then lock the door. 15 minutes later, my mom comes home and I explain what happened. She told me not to let anyone in when no one is at home, even if they are just a kid. I had later forgotten about this and thought that was the end, but boy was I wrong. The entitled kid brings his entitled mother to defend him and talk to my mom. This is how that conversation went. Me: "What are you doing here?" Entitled kid: "Getting what's mine." My mom to the entitled mother: "Please go away." Entitled mother: "Your child broke my son's very expensive racket, and assaulted him. He wanted a $400 console in exchange for a $10 racket. My mom and entitled mother argue for a while, and the kid tries to add stuff that never happened into the story, like I offered him my Xbox. He tries to steal my Xbox once more, but I stop him and kick him in the shin, and his mother takes him and runs out of the house. Later that night, the entitled kid's father comes to the house and apologizes to me and my mom, and also hands me a $2 note, which is around $30. I haven't seen that kid ever since. Update: the kid saw this post and told me to take it down. I refused. He offered me an iPhone. I told him once he sends me the iPhone, I'll take it down. Story 5. This happened yesterday, and we are still reeling from what occurred. I never thought I'd see a vicious Karen like her, and never in such a way that it scared the ones I care for the most. In a couple weeks, it will be our oldest child's 6th birthday, so we went out yesterday to shop for her birthday presents. Me and my wife, who we'll call Amber, decided that this year she could choose out what she wanted for presents, but limit it to either 3 small presents or 1 bigger one. So we took her and her 10-month-old brother and went to a Walmart nearby, and then into the children's toys aisle. And, being a kid, she wanted to inspect everything. She'd want to look at this item. I would take down an item that wanted, she'd inspect it. I would ask if she wanted that for her birthday. She'd say yes. I would put it temporarily in the shopping cart. Then we go down the aisle. She'd want to look at another item. Amber would take it off the shelf to look at. Ask if she wanted that for her birthday. She'd say no, and it'll go back onto the shelf. Customers went by, didn't think anything of it, not knowing that there was one we should be looking out for. Finally, we ended with 10 items that she wanted in the cart, all small items, so she would get 3 of these, and told her to decide what she really wanted from this pile. She looked them over, decided on 2 right away, but she really wanted 2 of the other ones so badly, please, that we succumbed to her pleading and agreed that we'd get her 4. Little ankle biter has us wrapped around her finger. We told her that she'd get these presents later, and after surviving a round of pouting and big deer eyes, she gave in with the most heartbreaking okay only a kid can give. We went to put the items back. To distract her, Amber asked if she wanted to get a drink from the in-store fast food company, and she took both her and our baby in his carrier towards the opposite corner of the store. Meanwhile, I was in charge of putting the discarded items back, and was to secretly buy the 4 items, put them in the trunk of the car, and then meet up with them after. We compared notes afterwards, so what happened here was from Amber's view. When she went around the corner, she heard an "excuse me" from behind, and thought nothing of it and kept walking. Then seconds later, a bit louder "excuse me" closer and louder. She still thought nothing of it and turned a corner towards the restaurant. Then finally a tap on her shoulder. Turning, my wife found Karen instantly jumping into her face as soon as she turned. Karen then told her, "I've been waiting minutes to be helped because you were busy with that one guy, but now where are you taking his children?" Amber responded, "These are my children," which got the immediate response from Karen in a larger voice. "Then why do you have children while you work? You have daycare for things like that." And while Amber was trying to figure out what Karen was saying, Karen then moved her hand as if to go for the carrier my wife was holding. Instinctively, Amber pulled her hand back so that Karen couldn't get a hold of it. That was enough to wake up our son, who started immediately crying. Amber then moved so she was between her daughter and this cranky woman. Then pulled out her phone and quickly texted me. She was able to send off the one text before an enraged Karen swats it out of her hand, telling her employees should not be on their phones while working. My wife tried to explain that she doesn't work here and never has worked here, while trying to soothe our son. Karen then said, "But I saw you take down that item for his daughter and put it back multiple times. Surely you work here." When Amber tried explaining that it was going to be her daughter's birthday soon, Karen just swished her hand aside and sniffed and said, "That's something you should do while not working. And without your kids here, you think you can do that whenever." And then she must have looked at my daughter, because she immediately grabbed Amber's legs as if she was worried something was going to happen to her. Amber put a hand on my daughter's head, trying to comfort her somewhat, and tried to tell Karen sternly, "I just told you that I do no work here." Only to have Karen scream, "Yes you do. I want to see your manager." Now our daughter is scared. At this point, Amber was about to unleash the one thing I dread ever since she became a mother. This inner beast which is half bear, half thunderstorm, and all motherhood that has the full fury when it comes to protecting our children. A little pissed off at this old woman who was scaring our daughter, and she started raising her voice too. Back to me. I've started returning the toys when I get the text from Amber. Looking at my phone, all I get is "I need help." Leaving the cart, I ask where she is while working my way towards the central part of the store. No response, but I did hear my son wailing loudly. Fearing the worst things only a parent can think of, I run towards the crying, with a loud voice yelling and Amber's voice starting to get loud too. Turning to the corner to see Amber trying to talk to this Karen, who was screaming about getting her fired. Trying to calm down a very scared little girl hiding behind her mother's legs, and soothing a jilted baby who had been napping all this time. I asked Amber what happened, and the Karen turned to address me. Finally, a manager, she half yelled, "You have to fire this worker of yours. She is such a bad employee that she cannot leave her children at home." I gave her this look of not understanding before catching the words employee. The company employees wear a well-known blue shirt, managers wear yellow vests, and all wear name tags. Not sure what they wear for pants because I've never thought to look. Now, Amber was wearing a dark red long-sleeved shirt and blue jeans. No vest that has the logo, and no way this could be mistaken as an employee. I was wearing a green shirt with a certain football logo on it, and blue jeans too. No name tags on either one of us either, so I have no idea how she got employee and manager out of what we were wearing. Chalk it up to Karen glasses, I guess. Then I made a mistake. I said she doesn't work here. She's my wife, who boy. She latched onto the "my wife" part as if she was a cross-examination prosecutor in court. Your wife? You let her bring in your children to work? Are you so broke that you cannot afford a babysitter? Could not get in a word edgewise as she just bellows this tirade at us. Finally, security gets there in what seemed forever, but likely only minutes. Karen sees them first and yells, "Security, I want both of them out of here, and I want to talk to whoever owns this store now." The officers don't even look at us, but at her and say, "Okay, let's take you to the office and escort her away." She looked back, pointed at us and yelled, "What about them?" Where the other officer just said, "We will come back and deal with them after you come to see the owner." Once they leave, I take the carrier crib away from Amber, and she turns to pick up a very scared little girl, who immediately latches onto her as if she had no plans to ever let go. It takes us quite a while to calm down our son, and I end up finding a chair in the outdoor section. Amber says she's going to the bathroom with our daughter and takes off. I'm too busy worrying about my son to care about whoever passes until I hear, "Sir, sorry to bother you." I look up to see someone who is wearing a manager vest, and he says, "We apologize for another customer harassing you and your family like that. We now have her sitting in our office until police come and plan to charge her for harassment. Would you like to press charges as well?" I simply replied, "I just want her gone." Manager just nodded, then quickly left. Now hearing how she went and tried to go for our son, even if she did not mean to, I wish I had. Amber came back soon with our daughter in hand and looked less pissed than when she was before. I passed our son to her, and my daughter climbed onto my legs and gave me a big hug. "Is the bad lady gone?" my daughter asked me. I smiled and said, "Yeah, the bad lady Karen is gone." More hugs as my wife holds onto a now quiet and awake boy. We didn't bother to go back and grab the cart with the toys she wanted. Amber said that she'll get them later this week. I saw the same manager as we left, and he passed something to us. It was a gift card as an apology for trouble Karen caused, and apologized again. And my daughter got treated to ice cream, so she was happy about that. Story 6. So to start it off, I have to set the scene and give some backstory. My mother, sister, and I had wanted to go to a non-specific water park today. We went and my sister took her baby girl, 2.5 years old, with her because she is a stay-at-home mom, and a very good mom at that. However, this day was more of a relaxing day for my mother and my sister. Honestly, they deserved it. They hadn't gotten any for a while. I was going to spend most of my day in the lazy river anyway. Also, I take care of Katie, fake name, sometimes, so it wouldn't be too much for me because I've done days before, and it wasn't much considering how many times I've watched after her beforehand. After most of the day had gone, she expectedly got tired, and we still had about an hour left, and since the trees covered all of the walking paths, I decided to put her in the wagon we bought specifically for her, because we expected her to get tired before we really decided to leave, and I started to walk around with her in the wagon, and she eventually fell asleep. On to what you people came here for. This lady with the thickest fake tan I have ever seen in person was walking along the path with her little boy, who was no older than 7, and I assumed she would just walk past me. But she stopped in her tracks and lowered her too big for her own head sunglasses to look me up and down. Me, being an awkward 16-year-old boy, stopped in my tracks too, and I looked at her with a slightly scared look on my face, and at that moment I realized that I made a mistake even stopping to acknowledge her. I remembered all too late that Karens can sense fear in their victims. This is paraphrasing, so sorry if it sounds a bit improvised. Adrenaline kicked in pretty early. Entitled Mother, so, how old are ya? Me, 16. Why? What kind of examples do you think you're setting for the kids here? Completely oblivious to what she meant and giving more attitude than I meant to. I beg your pardon? I am assuming she is only taken aback because I used one of her common lines against her, with as much disrespect that she gives when delivering it. She audibly scoffed, "Excuse me." I realized at that moment what she meant. At this point, I am just looking to get out of the situation, and I start to walk with Katie, who at this point is almost awake because that situation lasted about as long as a standoff in a Western movie. I heard her loud steps behind me, and I started to walk faster and faster to the point that it's almost a run, which Katie took no notice of, until I ended up slipping and falling to the ground, onto my face, and I didn't get up very quickly. I'm gonna be honest, at the cost of my pride, it knocked the air out of me, and I groaned as I got up, but I realized, in awe, that she was attempting to take my baby niece, not really mumbling about how she could do better than all these early parents. Before she really got her hands under Katie's arms, I shoved her off, knocking that witch to the ground, which didn't disturb Katie much, and I screamed at the lady, so intensely that I started to cry, which unfortunately did disturb Katie's sleep. This is the only part of speech I remember as clear as day, so I can proudly say that I did say this, but I still feel a little bad saying it while her son can still hear it. How could you ever put your hands on someone else's child, regardless of how old their parents are? I hope your child doesn't grow up to be as horrible as you. I know I am not even half as old as you are, but I would be 3 times the parent you will ever be. Once the ringing in my ears faded, and I actually was able to acknowledge the fact that Katie was waking up and started to cry, I readjusted her little pillow and started to walk off from her, to not be followed by the lady any further. I resisted the urge to look back, but I imagine her being flabbergasted and walking off with her son in such a huff that she walks too fast for him to keep up. Katie got to have the rest of her nap.